of the proposed City of Nampa FY 2026 budget. As Doug Racine and the City of Nampa, as our City of Nampa Chief Financial Officer, along with his team, have worked diligently to provide budget documents that are easy to review and accessible to the public, I just want to say, Doug and your team, thank you for your work. It is greatly appreciated. You do an amazing job. Thank you. So the budget process is extensive. Really beginning in late January, I guess I should go through these. Really beginning in late January with the initial work within each city department, beginning the initial work. And as we build the budget, we take into consideration our community priorities. And I will pause real quickly and go back. This is the budget process that you're seeing on screen. That we start with certain meetings between April and May that were workshops. And then we go on through the budget. And now we are here at the 25th, and then we've got a few meetings ahead of us. But we do take into consideration our, I normally talk off the cuff, and I am reading, and that is not my style. So we take into consideration our community survey. It's really important to us. And with that community survey, we identify certain priorities. And those priorities are maintaining a safe and healthy community, creating economic opportunity, excellence in city government, and improving movement in and through Nampa, which is a very high priority. Our community survey actually has shown that public safety and transportation and traffic are the highest ones. So transparency, let me see what's next. Transparency and stewardship are important core values to the city. We desire to use our citizens' hard-earned tax dollars extremely wisely. While living in a season, and let me see what I have next. Okay, while living in a season of rising costs, we, the city, are experiencing the same challenges that the public is because of rising costs. That said, we are continuing to ask that each department identify ways to do more with less, and to be innovative and to be diligent in their work. I'm proud of our city teams and the work that they do, and they understand what it is to work within a budget just as we all do. I also want to thank our Nampa City Council for taking time to do a deep dive into our budget. The City Council workshops that took place April through May, those are available online as this presentation will be. And they're an important part of the budget process because it gives the citizens and City Council the understanding of what each department's missions and goals are, which is very important to the process. So, lastly, I would like to say that while stewardship and transparency are key core values, another important core value to the City of Nampa is customer service. We, the City of Nampa, employees and the elected officials are here to serve our community. Our employees will continue to work to serve our citizens. And if you have any questions or concerns about the service we provide, I strongly encourage people to reach out to the mayor's office so that we can address whatever those questions and issues are. I'm proud of the city, the work that gets done. We have amazing employees. We are not perfect. However, we are good, and we strive to be good, and in everything that we do. And that, again, is transparency, it is stewardship, and it is customer service, being here to serve. So with that, Doug Racine, our CFO, is going to walk us through the budget. This is a very high-level overview. You have access to, one, the budget online, the executive summary, which is a good way that gives the background, but today Doug is going to be providing that background to us and walking through a number of items within the budget. So without further ado, Doug, thank you. There you go.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it. It's a pleasure to be able to work with the mayor because she understands the need for looking at this budget as a financial process, that we dig into things, we we analyze things, we try and understand the numbers before we put anything down on paper, and the mayor understands and appreciates that and encourages that so we can get the best possible product. It's a challenge. Like the mayor said, we started in January, and by the end of June, my wife is ready to lock me out of the house because I'm spending long hours and she doesn't see me anymore. But anyway, so the process today, as Mayor outlined it as the beginning, we started way back in January, and we began planning, and I'll come back to this, we began planning what do we want to accomplish. That's the first thing we consider. What do we want to accomplish? What are our goals? What's driving the budgetary process for this year? And 2 years ago, we opened up one of the goals was to open up the budgeting process to be more transparent. We added multiple organizations, and that's a department. So like the fire department or the police department, they are an org in an organization in our terminology. So we added several organizations within the police to expand their accountability. We added multiple accounts to break out travel and training and other costs so that as the council reviewed these, there was much more transparency and understanding. We took one line that was operational budget, and we broke it out into about 30 different accounts so we could say what was in that operational budget. It was a bit of a black hole, so we've opened that up. That was 2 years ago. So after we opened it up, the next year we came back and said, now that we've opened it up, let's look at these operational costs and cut them all by 5%. So we separated labor and the benefits, and we said the operational costs need to be cut by 5%. We've got transparency, we know what they are. We came in, we almost made it to 5%. I think we got to 4.5% reduction in costs last year. So this year, what's our goal for the FY26? Well, what we wanted to do, there were several goals. We wanted to hold on to all of the savings we got last year, the 4.5%. So we asked people to take their operational savings that was achieved last year and hold the line this year. Even though inflation is still out there, we asked them to keep their operational costs in line. There were a few line items we knew that would go up and there's nothing we could do about it. And I'll get to that in a minute, but we asked them to hold the line. And it's not easy in an inflationary environment, even though we're down to say 2.5%, 3% inflation right now, with core inflation without housing and gas, it's around 3%. There's these lingering effects from certain areas that just really keep compounding year after year: construction, utilities, energy costs. Insurance cost is a big one. Our insurance provider here, our health insurance, some of these costs are rather significant. And the second priority is, for years, the last 3 or 4 years, we have seen a tremendous outflow of employees as they can find a little better pay in a neighboring city. And what that means is when we start having these high turnovers, we have to rehire, re-incur training costs, we start over again, it becomes problematic, very, very, very challenging. So, but we're limited on our resources, and we have to operate within a fixed amount of revenue. So what we've done is we've tried to slowly inch ourselves closer to the average wage that's being paid in Meridian and local cities so that we don't lose our well-qualified people. And we did that this year, just a little bit. We wanted to maintain our position and maybe improve it just a little bit if we could. Also, two of the biggest our goals, that were finance goals, is to take the budget and improve its accuracy. When we look at the capital budgets, that's where most of our variability is. You get two big $2-3 million capital projects, and if 2 or 3 of those don't get done in any current year, you can have a significant over-budgeting impact. And we found that capital has been about 65% accuracy in the budgeting in terms of what we did. So we want to tighten that up. I want to get it to 85%. But there's noise in the projects. It takes a while to develop the project properly. It has to come before council and get approved by council. And in some aspects, the government process is designed to be methodical so that we don't overspend. So improving the capital budget accuracy was important. On the operational side, we're pretty good. We're about a 93% accuracy. I mean, if I budget $100, then I'm probably spending about 93. And that's pretty good. I want to get it to 95, and I want to do that by reducing the budget down to the level we're actually spending, not to increase the budget so we're spending more. It's to bring the budgetary down. That's one of the biggest goals, is get the budget line with the actuals. In my former life, working for Albertsons and St. Luke's, budgets had a different meaning. The budget in the city is our legal authority to spend. Without it, we can't spend. You know, in Albertsons and other for-profit companies, the budget means different things to them because a lot of people, it's how they determine their bonus, you know, and their operations. So they're very more adaptive. But since it's our legal authority to spend, we take 6 months and look at it very carefully. But one of my goals I didn't state here is to try and find a way to shorten the budget process. Does it seem inordinate to take 6 months to do a budget? It does to me. So we're trying to find ways to improve our process, tighten down the budget, and still improve the budget accuracy. Okay, so let's move on. Funding sources. I've found that when I've talked with the public, there's not a real clear understanding of how the funding sources are used to fund the various aspects of government. So this sheet, if we look at the very first section where it says funding from, and then underneath says government. So that's general government. And in the general government are the clerks, the mayor's office, finance, IT, HR, all of the internal services. The single biggest department in general government is the police. They are by far and away the largest department. But how is that funded? Well, property tax, we get about $46 million annually in total property taxes. We take and we break that down into the various departments, the general government, the library, the streets, the airport and cemetery and parks. Those are the primary users of general government property tax funds. But in general government, we have property taxes, and I'll show you the exact breakdown of how that funds, but we also have state shared revenues. Those are sales tax revenues that come in from the state. The state reconciles quarterly how many sales taxes have come in, but it's just the sales taxes from you going out to the Walmart or the Target and spending there. Anything that comes in from Amazon, that goes to the state, and they deal with it. That's how they've dealt with some of the property tax savings issues, is by redirecting sales taxes collected at the government, at the state level, but not at the city level. So let's go over from the government and look at the enterprise funds. Enterprise funds are generally the most closely organized fund to a business that you'll get, like an airport or a water or some department that operates on a fee-for-service. That's an enterprise fund. In ours, it's development services or building services. It's golf, irrigation, sanitation, water renewal, water. Those are funded entirely by fees and services and permits. No property tax dollars go to those departments, none, not a bit. In the internal services, we take the services that one department in the city does for another, like fleet services. We have a fleet services, we have engineering, we have utility billing. Utility billing cooperates with the public works and water, wastewater, and irrigation. They provide the water, we do the billing. Wellness, workers' compensation, those are all internal. Now, if I go back just a little bit to the government, when we look at that one, the government services accounts for about $69 million of our budget. The funding for enterprise is about $133 million, so twice the size of general government. The funding from internal services, about $4 million. Let's go on to the next page here. Now we've got the remainder of the funds. They're special revenue funds. These are funds that have dedicated revenue streams to support them. Airport, so they can collect money from rental fees and other airport-related fees. Cemetery, if you go use their services, hopefully not for a long time, you pay for a funeral plot there. The Civic Center, the Family Justice Center, library, they all have some dedicated revenue streams. And the library does get property taxes, the airport gets property taxes, and the cemetery, but the remainder do not, and Parks does as well. And that budget, they're about $78 million in that category. The debt service, we closed out and paid off the general obligation loan about a year and a half ago, so that one's gone. But we do have debt service for the wastewater treatment plant. Now, for those of you who followed the development of that, the city really did an absolutely stellar job of bringing in a massive project either at or under budget. No cost overruns on this. They managed it so well. It was the original expectation meant it could have been as much as $235 million. I think they came in finally at about $185 million. But now we have to pay that debt. So there's a payment going back to the DEQ. And by the way, the DEQ, Department of Environmental Quality, gave us an extremely favorable loan at 1.68% to fund this. So almost free money, but we still have to pay that back. And then and that fund is about $8 million, and that's all for DEQ. And finally, the franchise fees and the transfers. How do I fund the capital improvements for the general government? Well, we have franchise fees. You look at your utility bill for electricity or gas or internet, you see a little franchise fee at the bottom. That comes to the city, and we use that to fund capital needs. And there's some impact fees that are new developers, as new homes and new businesses are built, there's impact fees paid into the city. And that has this year, about $4.9 million. So let's look at it from this perspective, these two pie charts. Let's see, what's it going to be? The left side of the screen, it says total sources of funds for FY 2026. That's all the revenue for the city. So if we look at the blue pie at the bottom, and it says property taxes account for 15% of all revenues in the city, whereas in the gray, service revenue, fees and services, water payments, bill payments, utilities, and so forth, that's 35%. And then we have other impact fees, grants and donations, intergovernmental, which is the sales tax and the street and road, the highway and bridge taxes. And that's how the chart breaks down for the entirety of the city. The graph on the right is just general government. So it's just how much what are the revenue sources for general government. And you'll see that the property taxes are 54% of the general government's funding. They're only 15% of the total city, but they're 54% of general government. And then we have intergovernmental revenues, which are sales taxes, almost essentially, that come in. We have allocations and transfers. And allocations and transfers is when we provide a service for other departments, whether it be HR, payroll, AP, accounting, mayor's office. We charge out our services to the departments, and they pay us for those costs we incur on their behalf. But you can see that the differential is that while 15%, I mentioned this, while 15% is the total sources for property taxes, it's 54% of general government. And I'm going to get into where that's spent on probably the next slide. So this is how our property taxes are used. So we look at this and we go, the usage to support our costs in the general government, 80.6% of my costs in general government come from property taxes. That's to general government. That's for the police and the mayor's office and the internal services. Then we take 6.2% of it that goes to the library. It's about $2.5, $3 million. I don't remember the exact amount. Cemetery and airport get very small amounts, $100,000, $200,000. The streets gets $2.5 million. Parks gets a little more, about $3 million. And that's the entirety of the $45 million we get in property taxes. That's how it's used within the city, that breakout. Now, I should say that, we'll come to this slide. So this slide shows what it's paying for. We talked about it briefly. So we've got 80% of that money, or 54% of that money is coming from property taxes. Police. The police budget for the year is $40.3 million and includes an addition $1.9 million of capital. That's more than the amount of property taxes I give to general government. So they use 100% of the general government's assessment for property taxes, and then they take a little more from the intergovernmental revenues to make ends meet. That is by far and away the single largest department in general government, and it provides, I think the police do an absolutely awesome job in supporting the city and in providing safety and security for those. But when you look at the rest, you've got, say, we've got the information technology, they're about $2.6 million. Human resources, about $1 million. Finance cost about $1.6 million. The facilities is about $3 million. Facilities, don't underestimate them. They provide all of the support to keep this city running in terms of a maintenance and cleaning and custodial and repairing things and fixing things and making sure when we come to work in the morning, the doors actually unlock. They are facilities maintenance. They're very good about that. So if we wrap all this up and then go into the levy, if you look back at this from 2014 on to 2017 to 2025, you can see a steady decrease of the levy rate. But what does that really mean? Why is it going down? So there's a common misconception that the levy rate determines your taxes, and it's not the case. Your taxes determine the levy rate. So they take, the way the Canyon County develops it, they take the totality of our city budget. So if we have $45 million of property taxes, they take that $45 million and they divide it by the total taxable assets of the city. And that's about a net of urban renewal. Urban renewal is external to this. But they take those total taxable assets, which are $16.6 billion this year, and then divide them, and that's how you get the .002743 and several decimal points for the current year. So it is a representation of the calculation, but they don't take that and apply it to your taxes. It's the inverse. But why has it gone down over the years, and especially what happened in 2022? Well, if you recall back to 2000, starting in 21, 22, there's still a lot of noise with COVID going on, but my heavens, there was such dramatic inflation in home prices, just dramatic. And one year, I know one year we went up almost 40% in valuations in 1 year. The year prior was 24%. The year prior to that was 16%. So this dramatic increase in valuation is leading in large part to the lower levy rate because I'm not increasing my taxes not nearly as fast as the valuation of your homes are going up. So as the home goes up in valuation, that number goes down. And then in 2022, I believe the state passed a piece of legislation called House Bill 389 that wanted to restrict how much new income we would get from new property taxes. Somebody builds a new home, they build a new business, they're added to the tax rolls. It's not a tax increase, it's just applying the same tax rate to a new business. Well, the state legislature applied some programs that reduced the tax we would collect at first by 90%, but then they would make us estimate what our levy rate was going to be. And when I say us, I mean Canyon County would have to figure this out. Very complex calculation. They would have to say, what do I think the levy rate's going to be when all is said and done? But we're not done, so they have to do all this complex calculations to try and figure it out. And what resulted in a high inflationary time, that levy rate was dropping like a stone, and you can see it in 2020-21, just dropping like a stone. And that served to reduce the amount of money we could collect over years. Now it's up to $5.8 million per year that we're not collecting. And what happens is because we're not collecting that, and it's not a tax on you as homeowners, it's a tax on people who moved into new homes. So I can't collect that money. And what happens is it makes it difficult to pay for more police, for more public safety, for more anything that costs, and inflation is going up, wages have been going up. It makes it difficult to pay for that because the amount of money I collect on the new divisions was getting less and less and less. So in a very unintended way, what happens is because we're getting less from the new construction, the tax burden actually begins shifting back to the existing homeowner. And it's the law of unintended consequences. It can bite us pretty substantially. There's many things we literally cannot afford. We would like to, but then again, the city has always demonstrated very effective financial control, and we typically, until 389 was passed, we never took the full 3% we're allowed to by state. Never did. Every year it was less. It was 2%, 2.5%, maybe 2.75%, but we never took that. Now, because of the cuts, we have to take the full 3%, or we can't keep up with the cost of running the city. And that's at a very basic level before we add in new staffing or new police. It's just that's the result of it. In fact, if you've paid attention to what Meridian's doing, they're going for a levy override because they don't have enough money to pay for things, so they have to go up. And I live in Meridian, so my levy is going to go up because they didn't charge the new construction people. In order to pay for things, they've got to increase my taxes. It's a real challenge. But we're down to a 0.00. That's an estimated number, still very good, and it might go a little lower when we have the final numbers from Canyon County. So cost control, what did we do? Remember at the beginning I mentioned we wanted to hold costs to zero for operational costs. Well, what we did is we realized we're having inflationary pressures. And we knew that large equipment maintenance was going up because we have a brand new wastewater treatment plant. We've got to pay for maintenance and you've got to keep it up. That's going up. That also caused our insurance to go up. It caused our energy costs to go up. But our goal is and our hallmark is to control cost, or as I put it, cost avoidance, cost control. We try not to, we want to provide all the transparency so people can see what's going on in the budgets, because if you understand it, you can control it. If you don't understand it, you have a hard time controlling it. So we challenged all the departments to hold their operational budgets to a 0% cost. And we knew that some line items were going to go up, and we would let an allowance for those, but we'll go into that next. Total health care. Total health care. Health care is a blessing, but it's getting more and more expensive. So in this year's budget, our total health care premiums went up. Our total health care budget went up $1.4 million. There are multiple reasons for that. We had $110,000 from new healthcare costs for new police FTEs. I had $320,000 of new healthcare costs for new FTEs, full-time equivalent employees added to the city. Premiums are causing my rates to go up $870,000. And there were a few other mid-year changes where people would go, they're single, they get married, they file married, that costs more of insurance, so we had some cost increases there. I think this is about the last year we can really hold the line, and both employer and employee premiums are going up in the budget this year. I think the employee side is going up. It might be, I don't recall exactly, I think it's going up about 10%, and the employer side is going up about 6%. So we're trying to be responsible in how we shift that burden, but it is pricey and is expensive. Repairs and maintenance, as I indicated, up $1 million, and most of that is in water, wastewater, irrigation as we maintain the city's assets. Fleet services, the cost of parts for cars to repair them. We've got a guy here in the audience, I'll call him out, Doug Adams, manages our fleet department and does an absolutely stellar job at understanding what needs to be done in the most cost-efficient, timely manner to repair our vehicles. In fact, hopefully we're building a new fleet service center this year, and other cities have expressed interest in coming to us to pay us to repair some of their cars. That's because Doug knows what he's doing, and he runs a really tight shop. But still, the costs of the parts for repairing our vehicles has gone up $335,000. Energy costs went up $289,000. A lot of that has to do with the wastewater treatment plant. And I'll get to this in a minute. You build a new plant, more electricity, greater cost. But what happened is, and I'll get to it on the next page, the chemical costs went down $377,000 because we stopped using chemicals in the wastewater treatment plant, and they started using these UV lights to do the purification. So it's a good swing. Maybe $100,000 more, $150,000 more electricity, you save $400,000 in chemical cost. That's a great trade-off. But since it shows by line, this is how we're showing it out. ICRIM, they are our insurance provider for the city's assets. That's up $252,000. Last year it was also up $250,000. It is pricey, and this is a challenge. And we manage our claim. We have lower claims than other cities. We still went up by that amount of money. But again, I need to call out part of that, probably about 100,000 of that is due to the wastewater treatment plant. So it's a gift to keep on giving. It gives you fantastically good recyclable. It goes into, I think we're the first in the nation to do recycling some of our secondary water, where you can take the Indian River and recycle it, not just throw it down the river. So it's fantastic work, but there's some costs associated with that to get to that level of recyclability. So successes. What are we on success? Excluding the personal debt, the personal labor, and the debt services, the operational expenses went down $2.3 million. So we did manage to cut costs out. Capital budgets decreased by $4.2 million. A lot of that has to do with completing the wastewater treatment plant. We had some lower impact fee spending as well. Maintenance contracts decreased by $388,000. A lot of that had to do with decreased maintenance costs in 911, and for the facilities, we decided to save money by taking our HVAC contract in-house. Rather than paying a couple $100,000 to an external service to change our filters and our belts and the easy maintenance, we went in-house and saved money on that one. So that has a decrease there. And as I indicated, the chemical usage and water renewal decreased by $377,000. So there are long-term benefits to the new plant. But it's worth mentioning we did not have an option that was required by the government. We had to do that plant. And I think Boise's in the middle of theirs right now, so everybody has that particular process coming or in process. Now, when we look at, there we go. Nampa's population. Look, back in 2014, 84,000 people were projected to be at 127,000 by the end of 26. That's a 43,000 population. That's 50% increase in a little over 10 years. How do we, that's dramatic cost increases in how we manage the city. The impact to traffic, to the amount that Crystal has to do to keep the streets in shape, to the amount of water, wastewater, irrigation, all the repairs we need to do. It's a dramatic challenge to the city. And we're trying to meet that budgetarily by being very proactive, and as the mayor said, trying to do more with less, be creative, find out new ways to do things. And my contribution to that part is by developing a forward-looking budget. And I don't have it here, but we've taken all of our history and we've broadcasted out 5 years to see if the current revenue trends continue and the current expense trends continue, where are we going to be in 5 years? What challenges we face now? Because if we look at that now and identify a challenge, we can begin to make modifications now to our process. And that's where we're at right now, is looking at where we're at and where we want to be. So the next slide is the city's FTE, our full-time equivalents per 1,000 population. You'll see, first thing you'll notice is that in 2021, there was a significant decrease. That's the year that the fire department left to become a district, so that decreased our FTEs. But if you look at that since then, from 2022 to 2026, even though our population's gone up from roughly 100,000 to 127,000, we're keeping our employees at the same FTE level of 5.8. Now, you might want to say, well, why can't you just keep it flat and not add FTEs at all? Well, this year, the FTEs that were added, and we have actually reduced the number of FTEs, but the single largest FTE increase in the city for the government will be the police, because we need public safety. Every 1,000 people, new 1,000 people in the city requires a certain degree of police support. And then what we're doing in the water, wastewater, streets is adding more staff in there so that we can convert more expensive external capital processes, where we go out and pay somebody to do a project, to building the capacity to do it internal, and we have more control, we get better quality, and it costs us less overall. So that's where the FTEs are changing now, is adding more on the public works side to help us avoid future cost increases from construction. In the height of COVID, in the era, back in probably 2022 and 23, the Western States Production Price Index, that's the construction index, the construction index, like the CPA only for construction, was over 9% per year. Just untenable. We couldn't keep up with it. So we're shifting to internal where we can, but we're doing it measured, a step at a time. We're not going all in. We're stepping into it one group at a time to make sure that we do this correctly and we don't overspend and get ahead of ourselves in any of the key aspects. The proposed budget will be available on display at the library. We're going to have some, I don't know when we're going to have this up, Leslie. Do we have some screens we were going to put up there? Well, there will be, I'm sure the tape, they will be up there.
They will be up by July 1st.
Okay, great. So there'll be some information there in 8 larger screens that you can look at. And then finally, we go down here, what's our future step? So on July 17th, and maybe the 18th, we'll have the council workshops where finance and the departments will present their budgets to the council for their debate. And this is not the approval of the budget. This is the time when the councilors look at the detailed budget and they challenge it, they ask questions, they can make changes to it, and we'll go through by department in about a day, maybe a day and a half. Hopefully, maybe we can get it done in a day. And whatever we determine on that budget, whatever changes made, I will have until about August 4th to rebuild the budget deck and reissue it and publish the final budget that will be used to come forward on the August 18th in the public hearing. Between those dates, August 13th, there will be public comments for consideration. You can submit them back to the city for your thoughts. But I would ask all who have an interest in this to make sure you come at least to the August 18th budget hearing. That's the public hearing. We'll present that for formal approval and adoption to begin on October 1st of 2025. And finally, if you look at that, there's a little Scan Me code and a QR code. There's 2 of them in this book here. The QR code, if you get that, you can pull up the budget book. I believe we've linked it to the 26. I hope we're there. And there's another QR code earlier in the deck that has this deck in it. And I think those are available online as well, at least the QR codes. Finally, questions. If you have questions, you can email the mayor's office or call them. If you have feedback, you can give that to the clerk's office. There's a number there and an email address. And with that, I thank you all very much for listening. Budgets are kind of dry sometimes, and I appreciate those who come and listen to this. It means a lot because citizen involvement here is really critical to building the best process and the most transparent process we can. And with that, I thank you all and express hope that this budget goes smoothly, more smoothly in next year.